Welcome back to another episode, the League of Inches Supercoach Draft Special. Uh, Cannot wait for this one. We teased it. A lot of you actually messaged the page, got in contact with us, and said you were interested in a draft style show. So we have delivered. We did promise you. We listened to the fans, and we have done so on this occasion once again. So look, the benefit is you're not going to hear me talk much at all because I'm quite new to draft. And when I say quite new, literally about a month, I set up the League of Inches draft and had to ask questions all the way through as I set up that league. So that is how fresh I am. But the good thing is I've got two professionals when it comes to the draft scene. Obviously, Jesse, the residential League of Inches Supercoach special expert now. I shouldn't say specialist, the expert now. And we've got Shane along now as well. He is just a draft connoisseur, really keen to get his thoughts on things as well. And the setup as well. He's come in hot here. He's got a lot of pressure on a lot of League of Inches crew at the moment with this current setup. And I'm anticipating him to do well tonight, and I think he's straight into the lineup. We'll have a chat about that off air, but he's coming straight in. Shane, how are you feeling? I don't even think there's nerves there.
No, good. It's like, you get invited to the ball, so you got to show up in your best outfit and dress to impress. So, yeah, happy to be along. And that was some big kind of claims thrown our way, like a draft connoisseur. And every time I listen to your podcast, every time I listen to your podcast and you make a claim that Jesse knows what he's talking about, I have to double check I'm watching the right podcast. But no, keen to get on, talk some draft footy. Love some draft, love classic, but draft is really fucking fun. So yeah, keen to get stuck in it.
Yeah, it kind of all started with draft. Actually, I honestly, to be honest with you, I didn't even watch the footy back in the day. It was I got into the league with Shane. Probably for a code we don't talk about 7 odd years ago, and I'd already been running for a couple. So yeah, you're not wrong with the draft connoisseur side of things. The guy's a veteran, and definitely does well to don't want to inflate his ego any more than it already is, but the guy's a seasoned champ, just unfortunately never actually won a title.
Yeah, that's where my ego doesn't.
Couple, so yeah,
that's where my ego doesn't get inflated, is because I'm like what's known as a perennial regular season champion, and then the bad luck strikes and the grand final never comes. So
yeah, it's out in round one almost every time, even though you top pretty much every other ladder. So
yeah, top of the table, most points scored, just all guns firing. Yeah, it's a fickle game.
Out in round one. And
the funny thing is here,
plus of draft, I think that's where it appeals to everyone, is that it's anyone's game in any week. So
the funny thing here, we know these two right now, guys. I know they're in 2 drafts at least together, so they're versing each other. It's going to be an interesting episode because I want them to both let the viewers in to know some of their tactics and things like that. But at the same time, I know there's a little bit of they'll be up against each other. They don't want to give away too much. There's always that little bit behind there, but I just want to quickly do some front of house stuff. I want to quickly just, obviously our League of Inches overall comp is still, you can still get in there still a couple of weeks before the season starts. That league comp code, again, it's at Supercoach rings. You can win as well, the champion there. 452990 is the league code there. So just go ahead to Supercoach and add yourself in, and you can verse the like of myself, Jesse. I believe Shane's in there as well. You can test yourself against all 3 of us and see if you can beat us. So you probably beat me, but I don't know about the other 2, the big guns here. The last one, obviously, and this will probably go towards this episode as well, and afterwards a bit more help. The Rugby League Fantasy Pro, that website we have been talking about, where it just covers everything to do with Supercoach, the fantasy side of things as well, and the draft stuff. So honestly, guys, if you haven't yet and you're into this content, make sure you do yourself a favor, go over to the website. If you use the logo, the promo code 2feet as well, that's the number 2 and the word feet, you get a $10 off your first year subscription as well. So please, guys, Jesse has been living on it the last couple of weeks since we've had access to it. It is a really, really good website. I've been starting to get on it as well now that work's freed up a little bit. spend some nights on it, and yeah, it is top stuff. But that's all I needed to do. I am now going to throw it over to the two draft guns to take it away, and I'll just be popping in here and there to ask some basic 101 questions. So Jesse, take it away.
Yeah. So when it comes to the draft, obviously a lot of it's going to be pretty. It's going to be quite different depending on what sort of league setup you've got. The way that your league's formatted, how many players you're actually running with, whether or not you're playing buy rounds is one thing to consider too, because you do have to very, very heavily plan for how you set your teams up for the long run. So, take it with a bit of a grain because we're just going to be talking overall. And quite a basic setup. Like if you're pretty fresh to draft, it's probably the most fun game mode that you'll ever play. It's definitely one way to claim glory over your mates and pretty much rub them into the dirt for the entire year. And if you're winning some sort of trophy or a ring or something good, forget cash comps, forget money. You're playing for glory and you're playing for bragging rights, and that's the ultimate goal at the end of the day. So, Shane can win all the points masters in the world, but my name's on that trophy twice. So,
I
it's the little things.
I cursed myself years ago. I was having a really good year, and I was over at my mate's place, and he had the trophy there, so I took a selfie with it. And yeah,
you never touch the trophy before you win
it. Rookie,
it's just bad juju.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't really, obviously, we play each other in 2 comps. We know each other's game pretty well, so I'm not too worried about giving away strategy to Shane. I don't think he needs my input. He's pretty well seasoned himself. So I just hope the rest of the league doesn't listen because they do need it. They need it a lot more than we do. So
I want to send viewers to the League of Inches page, but like they don't even listen to the content that I post just for them, so they're not going to jump on here as well.
So, depending on what you're playing and stuff, the draft order doesn't change. You know what I mean? Guns are guns. If you've played Supercoach Classic, you know how the point scoring works. It's very attacking stats. So, at the top of the pack, I'm just going to run through the top 10 of the draft order. Number 1, no surprises to anyone on earth. It's Nico Hines. Just an absolute monster in pretty much everything you do. And he's pretty well going to be the first pick in basically every draft league, unless you have rocks in your brain. So that's pretty straightforward, I think. And number 2, Nathan Cleary. Look, that doesn't change regardless. You know what I mean? There are differences between your classic Supercoach budget allocations to trying to make cash to try and move up. Obviously, there is no money involved in player pricing in this. So essentially, you just want to get guns. Ponga, Drinkwater, Turbo, 3 fullbacks in a row. You'll see that go in trend for the top 10 anyway. You got Dave Fafita in there, absolute monster, first highest second row forward. So that's a big point there. We'll get into that in a minute anyway. And then you got Walsh, Gutho, Sean Johnson, and then Tino. As far as props go, getting into the top 10 of a draft overall is pretty huge. So, Shane, any sort of input on that top 10 and your thoughts about any of those players in there, mate?
Well, there's like the first thing I will say is that you mentioned that you'd pick Hines first up unless you had rocks in your head, and Jesse will have seen this, but I tried to put a little misinformation or doubt out there for the people in one of our leagues that have the top picks. So I made a little poll and I said, who would you pick first if you had first in the draft? So it was between Nico, Cleary, and Ponga, and I think we both picked Ponga. And so I was like, it's not going to benefit me. These guys, I think I'm 5th in that league. I'm like, Hines and Cleary, they're never going to fall to me, but I can have a bit of fun with it.
I just wanted to see if I could raise any sort of eyebrows with that one. Just if there was 2 on Ponga and 1 on the others, people start going, "What's going on here?" So
no, they'll think about it. But the thing that stands out for me is you've got a few players up there that had kind of career best years. So you're looking at Sean Johnson, Clint Gutherson. Having those 2 boys in the top 10 for draft is they're up there. So yeah, when I'm looking at draft, I'm looking at what happened last year and is it like is it an outlier, or have they proven themselves over years and years of Supercoach? So like if I'm paying big bickies for someone in the first round of a draft, yeah, I want them to have consistently put together scores over a number of seasons. And I think you boys have probably checked out Sean Johnson's stats in your classic pods, and yeah, some of his years prior to last year don't quite match up to his 78 average from last year. So players like that, I'm not super interested in.
Yeah, and that's a thing that we made even in our pods with the Warriors special anyway, was the fact that SJ's coming in ranked number 9. Early drafters and people pretty fresh to it, they're going to see SJ in 9 and the hype of everything last year with the Dally M side of things. It's quite irrelevant when you're looking at the actual, the game itself, how well someone's really doing in real life when you had Nico Hines just dominate all year. And it kind of can skew it a little bit. But again, he had his best ever year scoring 78, and there's still 8 people above him. And they, half of them kind of just eased into those scores. So yeah, you're right about that, man. It's you do have to look at the order, and you do have to go through it too, and kind of cull the numbers or rearrange them in a way that you see fit. For that first round, even the second round too, like things start to drop off quite heavily after that. And then you start picking up the dregs and filling your squad around. But you got to get those vital positions locked in. And obviously we can see where those positions are, because when you start filtering by actual position and not by draft order, and you can run through it, you know what I mean? Like if you just jump into fullback, you're going to see that there's quite a few fullbacks in the top 30, for example. But then you go into your other positions a bit thinner. 5'8's a key example. There is absolutely fuck all of them that are any good. So the plan sort of would be is just, obviously work out thinness, find quality in those positions, and then just carry on from there. So don't jump the gun, don't think, I need to get this guy in because he's good, if there's a wealth of talent in that same position that you could afford to kind of get a bit later on if you found yourself in that kind of position. So
what's kind of league dependent as well, Jesse. Like
yeah,
it's
it is.
like there's so many different kind of combinations you could have in draft. It's like, I mean, we've got 12-man leagues. You could have a 10-man, an 8-man. Are you playing with full squad? Are you like, a few men short in a certain position? So like you're looking at that, and it's like I mean, like forwards, for instance, like the League of Inches draft, it's a full man squad. So we got to pick 3 second rowers. And then in the other draft that me and Jesse are in, we're only picking 2 RFs. So all of a sudden it's like, well, I need 1 less for my starting side. They're slightly less important. And there's a ton of depth in that position. So it's like, well, do I want to go early? Like, maybe if you have to draft 3, 2 of your top 5 or 6 picks might be 2 RFs. You might get a couple big boppers. Whereas if you've got a different kind of league setup, you might be just looking at 1 and then finding a bit of depth later on, because all of a sudden there's a lot more because they're frigging everywhere. And yeah, you just don't need that many in your outside. So
yeah,
you boys, just quick one from me. You boys talk about the league setup side of things, and I think it might be worth touching on that quickly, just for the newcomers like myself who haven't ever touched drafts before. One of those reasons is it does look quite intimidating when you do go to try and set one up. I will be honest with that. There is so many options and things like that. And I know it's hard to sort of go through, but can you quickly both just sort of pinpoint some of the key sort of settings that you guys would choose for setup? Let's go a standard, say, 10-man league, but some of those other settings you could play with to sort of make it easy for those out there who do want to start in the draft side of things, but it just, as I said, it's very intimidating setting those comps up.
Shane?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you've got a 10-man, I'd probably just be going a full squad. And then, potentially
and is that full Supercoach squad, like classic squad?
So we're talking 13 starters in your side. And probably a 5-man bench. So I think there's 4 default options for Supercoach.
Yeah.
And then the thing with that was really good with Supercoach is last year they made it fully customizable. I think you can go in there and you can make it so you have to start 5 hookers. I was like, why is that an option? But So like, yeah, so like a squad that kind of reflects real life. So 13-man squad, and then you've got a bench. So like if you've got a 10-man league with full squads size, then it's going to be a good number. So you also got to kind of consider like that you've got the waiver wire. So basically all the players that don't get picked in your draft are going to be sitting there ready for you to pick up. And you kind of want like some options there, but you don't want there to be too many options. If there's just too much talent left on the waivers, then it probably makes like the draft less important. So you got to kind of find that balance. So yeah, if there's just like nothing on the waivers as well, it could mean that like teams have to trade with each other a little bit more. So yeah, there is a bit to think about there. But you know, if like you're a 10-man league, I'd just go full squad, 13-man. 4 to 5 player bench, whatever it is. Yeah, probably same with an 8-man. 12-man, you could do the same. You could reduce it by a couple if you want there to be a bit more talent on the waivers. But yeah, that's my thoughts, Jesse.
Yeah, I've been in draft leagues that have been quite small and haven't run a full team. And honestly, you look at the waivers, and sometimes there is a full better team on the waivers almost than what you actually got at the time. So it's you kind of sport for choice, and it does take that bit of edge off because you know you do want there to be competition between them. And obviously you do want an option on the waivers, but again, you don't want those waiver players to be better than half of them. And then you can kind of get stuck with you know, depending on how you want it to go. Like I'm a big fan of trading. I just think it brings a bit of, you know, brings a bit of relevance to some players, and it's enjoyable. And you know, you can try and, if you Shane over here, you try and stitch people up on every chance you get. So come on, it's all fun and games, man.
People have clued in for that by now.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, it didn't take them too long. But yeah, you know, you want to be able to pick up these guys and move them around and stuff. And if you've got players on the waivers that are just as good as people that you're trying to trade, then it's just never going to happen. And then you just start to see things go a bit stale, and you know, no one starts to talk about it, and then you know people get complacent. If they start doing real shitty, then they just lose interest, and you know that's not where it's very fun. So you got to kind of find a, you know, there's a little balance. You got to get it right. So but yeah, you're right about that. Between the 10 and the 12s, like if you're doing a 12 with a full squad, fuck, there's going to be barely anyone left, and that kind of keeps it a bit more fun. And that's where injuries come into it as well. So it's a little bit different when it comes to the injury side of things with these players. You know what I mean? Like you want to hold them if you can. Like once they're gone, someone picks them up. You're not getting them back. Like that's your player that you've just decided to throw in the bin. So outside of that, though, like when you're talking strategy, it's going to be draft dependent. When you're talking the players that you've got, the pool that you've got, again, like however your draft set up, you do have to just sort of run with it, you know, accordingly, because a lot of it is different.
You got the I did make a captaincy option as well.
Yeah,
captaincy.
There's that too.
I was going to mention that to debate.
Yeah.
Do you go for the captaincy or you don't?
No, I find it's pretty well irrelevant. And again, if you've got someone like your Nikos and stuff, you're pretty much winning every round. You know what I mean? It's just a little bit. You got to even the playing field. So I'm against it, to be honest, Shane.
Yeah, I think captaincy is like perfect for classic. You know, where your teams are like, you know, 70-80% the same by the end of the season. But like draft, there's already enough factors that are like completely different. Like your sides are, you know, like completely different than each other. So you're not having that crossover. So yeah, I'd rather just, you know, let the side go. And I think it probably like, yeah, your first pick is like way more important if you're playing with captains. And then you can get stitched up by like the order for the draft. So like Jesse said, if you get Hines and Cleary, that's like a pretty big advantage in a captain's league. It's already an advantage. So I think like a captain probably puts it over the line, and it's a bit too much.
Yeah, you're basically pulling in, you know, minimum 200 a week out of one player. You just give up the second you face them that round. So
that's a bad week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at minimum 200, and you're just like, fucking hell, I've got no chance.
300.
Yeah, it could be. It would have happened. There would have been more than that if you'd done captains. So, as far as it goes, I did make the point
with the waiver side of things. So just so I can get a good understanding of that, and maybe players out there who haven't yet, is that basically once the draft has been done and everyone's got their squads of however many they've set their squads up for, it closes off, and then that's when waivers come into effect. So say if you've got a second rower that you don't really like, and I know, let's say for instance Sean Lane's sitting there, you can actually go, and is it like unlimited? Is it like whoever was draftee number 1 has to get first priority, or how does it all work?
So basically how it'll run is like once you've picked your teams, and whether you're doing, the serpentine draft, you're going from 1 down to whatever it ends up, say 12, because, we're doing the 12. It goes 1 down to 12, 12 gets the double, and it comes back to 1, 1 gets the double, and it just keeps doing this pretty much until your entire squad is
really
filled.
Good.
Yeah. No, really.
Love it.
But yeah, you fill your whole team up, and then everyone that wasn't picked will just be sitting in the waivers. And how it'll run is that it'll tend to be the reverse order for your ladder. So last place in the league for the round, or last place in the ladder actually, will get first pick of the draft when the waivers open up. So there'll be a lockout for the week. Once that frees up, you can put all your claims in too. Like you can put this player for this to this, this to this. And then when basically the timer runs out, goes open, it'll start picking those players in the orders that the draft orders have been dropped into. So last place will get first choice, second last will get next choice, and then it will run through sheets like that until basically it's done. And that will happen instantly on that release of the waiver lockout. And then up until the round starts, well, it's rolling, so it's per game, but up until that goes through, you can go in there and chop and change all you want. Once you drop someone, they will be locked. So you won't be able to pick them up instantly. There will be a timeout on them. And that's kind of it, really. So you just have this whole bunch of players in there, and then you start seeing, especially early days too, if you're not very confident, someone just comes out guns blazing, and their average is absolutely unbelievable because they're averaging 120 because they killed it. You're going to see a lot of people want to try and jump on that guy, and then get slapped in the face because it's not sustainable. So that's where you sort of have to have a bit of ball knowledge, I guess, when you just think of just previous scores, whether or not it was one massive round 1 game or early day stuff. But it is a good time to pick up some key players as well. So depending on when you actually do your draft, if it's before team list or after, drafts before team list, you're going to see a hell of a lot of changes when it comes to that round 1 side, because obviously you're going in blind. You can go off the trial team list and stuff, but yeah, you're not going to know anything until
you can't really do that this year with round 0 in Vegas.
Makes it hard, almost impossible.
True.
But yeah, I kind of love like the waivers because I think for Supercoach Classic, everybody's like Team List Tuesday, first Team List Tuesday, biggest day of the year, right? Like it's excitement, who's going to get named where. And then when you're playing draft, you want guys to get named. You want fresh talent coming in because you want to waiver somebody and fix up a hole in your side. So you're really checking out the team list every Tuesday because it's I want someone. I want, well, it's not as much, but it's still team lists aren't as important, but if somebody pops up new and you're yeah, so it can be a good way to kind of fix your draft side as well. So last year I had a bit of a shocker where I had a few picks that didn't quite work out. I drafted a few guys early, they didn't hit their averages, and then I got Pappy and I got Sean Lane. So I had too many injured guys because I was thinking too far ahead. I was like, I'm gonna pick up some injured guys, and they're gonna be sweet by the time the finals roll around. But next thing, I was struggling and my team was terrible. So I had to kind of go through the waivers. I was able to grab some talent because I was always down the bottom of the ranks, and then work my way into the top 8 and play in the finals and inevitably lose. But it was good to rebuild a team. It was something different. So you can recover from draft day. So that's the fun of it.
Yeah, and I think you lost 7 in a row to start the season and still were able to pull it through. Obviously, it just shows to show how bad some of the other players were that you're able to pull that one back. But
or how great I was at recovering.
Yeah, how great you are at picking up waivers and having them turn into gold. Yeah, but there's been a few players too, you drafted Harry Grant last round for the Tigers that year.
Oh. Yeah. 2020. I'd heard, Harry Grant. There was the rumor that he was going to go to the Tigers, so I drafted him final round, and I also drafted Damien Cook in the final round of the draft. The year that he blew up as well at the Rabbits. So
yeah,
love a good
pretty
late
good.
hooker, late night hooker, we'll call it.
Yeah.
Well, those boys listening in on the League of Inches draft, Luciano Leilua looks like a really good round 1 pick. He's going to the Dragons. Just get all over him. I'd be putting him in the top probably 5 picks.
Yeah, 5 picks up your ass.
I'm going Luciano in round 1, Nofaluma in round 2.
Fucking hell, what year is this?
Jesse Bromwich round 3.
Fucking hell, this is good. Cam Smith. May as well. Cooper Cronk. But yeah, you can pick up some good players quite late too. And, if there's someone in there that's kind of slipped through the cracks, or, you're looking at prospects and stuff, you don't like, there are, to an extent, you do want to kind of get on them, but you don't want to get caught up in doing that too, because, again, in when you're doing your classics, you're really budgeting. You're going from, I need to get this player in because he's great. And then you start looking at the mid ranges. And you start looking below them for value, like points to dollar value, where like that doesn't translate. So if you've got someone there that's proven for the last couple of years, he's going to do quite well. But then you're hearing all this talk, there's all these articles about these guys coming up, and you're thinking, fuck, these guys look like they're going to be on for it. It's like they might be on for some cash generation, but they're not a long-term play. That's not really what you want for the draft. You kind of do want that long-term play. As long as you can kind of get anyway before you have to start chopping and changing. But again, man, like it's one of those, you get injuries and you're going to have to change them regardless. So you can you don't see your team looking like it was when you start, very rarely anyway. Shane's team was completely unrecognizable by the end of the year.
Yeah.
You crack the shits with players.
Yeah. Sometimes you can get a bit carried away in the quest to fix your side, and you drop some people and you're like, why did I do that? But it's to Jesse's point about like, cash cows. It's good to kind of like, if you're following Classic, you're obviously hearing about all the cash cows coming through, the up and coming guys. And for every like, Harry Grant in the final round that turns out to be an absolute superstar, there's like 10 other guys. Like there's Liam Knight in 2021 that I drafted to like be my starting side, and he just did nothing. So like cash cows are great for generating cash, but we're not worried about this. So sometimes you just like you're better off sticking with those like tried and tested guns. And then if you're gonna take a shot at somebody, you do it like late in the draft, like right at the death. So
it's all about pretty much the round that you're picking them in. We've got deep pockets in draft, so you can kind of do whatever you want. But yeah, you're not drafting Egan Butcher in like the 4th round. You know what I mean? I think you took him quite early last season. So
Egan, did I?
You took Egan, and then you dropped him.
God. Yeah,
and then I picked him up, and I rolled with that one for a fair while. So yeah, you got to capitalize on these drops too, because you get someone that gets torched by, you just have 2 or 3 bad weeks for someone, and then you are straight to the pits. And then you're thinking, you know what, like I could take a punt on this guy, and then they start performing.
I grabbed Jack DeBellin off the waivers last year.
Our
mate Cole dropped him because I don't know, his minutes must have been inconsistent, and then he had one good week. I'm like, he's back on. And who's got the draft priority, or the waiver priority, I should say? It was me. So bang, straight in my side, and he killed it.
Yeah, like I remember I picked up Nico Hines off the waivers.
Who?
Nico Hines.
Who's
that? This random bloke, I don't know, got him off the waivers. What an absolute monster that was. So
the Sharkies' pride and joy.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
they got to put a statue of him out the front. Yep.
How much influence does the draw have on draft? I'm thinking about it in my head, and I've been thinking about it basically since we had the comp running. And when I'm trying to pre-plan some moves and things like that, and from what I've heard, the start of the season is obviously very important, but it's actually the back half when the finals times are hitting, which is probably the most important time to make sure you've got the players, the key players playing, especially who will get you the points. So just how key is looking at the draw before you start your draft?
I would say you do have to keep it in mind, definitely. Obviously, a lot changes between now and then. And again, you can always trade too. So like if you can get the best out of someone now, who look like they're going to have a bad end, you just try and trade them, see if someone doesn't realize as much. So again, you're dealing with other people, so there's a lot you can work around. But yeah, like you're going to be able to work off a lot of that for the immediate time. It's a long way away for now. You know what I mean? It's almost not worth considering if you unless you hope that they're going to last the length. I know Shane's obviously made a point about the Cows and where they finish up in the at their last round for the final. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing is going to just wreck you pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But again, it's a long way away for now. So
it depends. Like, if it's your first couple seasons or whatever doing draft, just focus on picking good players, like making smart decisions, not panicking. But if you're a seasoned drafter who's spent a decade not winning the big one, then yeah, you're going to start thinking about like the long play. Like, so like I've been looking at finals series. So I think a lot of finals comps for draft, like, your top 8 or whatever setup you have, it'll be running from round 23 to round 26. So there's teams that have buys in those rounds. So I think Roosters have the buy around 23. Broncos have the buy around 24. Cowboys have the buy around 25. And then Tigers have the buy around 26. Now, you could kind of forget about the Tigers. Yeah, well, so I could tell. So I told you I've been thinking.
You are on the League of Inches crew after this. Goodness, but, just sign him up.
Yeah. What's my signing bonus? Anyway, yeah, no. So like Tigers, you could probably like forget about, because I think in the draft ranks, there's 3 Tigers maybe in the top 100. So it's not super important. And if you get one of them, like, and they're decent in your side, like they're not going to be one of your top players. So my consideration that I've been thinking about is I don't really want my first round pick or maybe my second or third round pick to have a buy in a really important round. So like it would suck if you get to the qualifying final and you've got Scott Drinkwater as your, top player. Like he's a gun, but then he's not there when you need him to get into the grand final.
So he'll get you there, but he won't win you the big one, is what you're trying to say. It's catch 22 sort of situation.
Yeah, but it's like, it's like Jesse said, it's a long way away. You've got to get there. There's a lot of stuff that could happen. But I think like another consideration as well, like thinking about the long game, it's kind of like early season injuries don't quite mean as much. So like obviously it's come out that Dave Fafita is not looking at a return until I think round 5.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he's sitting there at number 6 in the draft ranks. I would assume he's still going to go in the first round. So like it's going to be shit to not have him in your side for those first 5 weeks. Like one of them is a buy, so you're only missing 4 rounds. So yeah, I can still see him going early. You played the long strategy on that one, and you don't stress too much about that. So the only thing where you should look into that is you want to make sure like they've got a return date in mind, because I did that with Pappy last year. I went, yep, I'm going to get Pappy early. That was meant to be maybe around 10-ish, and then it bloomed out, and yeah, he came back and my season was done. So
tonight's anything to go by, he should be your number 1 pick this year. He's back, everyone. I'm officially declaring it now. I can't wait to see him. With the finals, so the teams that don't make the final series, I think that if it's a 12-man comp and you do like that top 8 system, that's obviously 4. Does that pool of 4 team players go into like the waiver so you can pick them up for finals, or they're done? You can't.
No, they die with the player, man. They're gone.
Yeah, and you can't trade with them either. So usually you'll have the commissioner. So ideally, like you'll have a guy who's the commissioner who knows what they're doing. So unfortunately, like for our league, like Joel, you're the commissioner, so that's why we have to smarten you up. But
I don't nominate for that position.
Well, you set up the league
up now. That's it.
But
you stitch yourself up.
But like, yeah, so like I know in the league me and Jesse been in for years, we get towards round like the end of the season and we go, all right, trade deadline, like this is the last day you can put a trade in, because it starts to get too close to like the finals. So that's like, league dependent. You can kind of make that up as you go, whatever works best for you. But
yeah, you kind of know who's not going to make it, and the trade deadline is a good idea. We can always talk about, there's been a few sketchy little moves when it comes to round one trades in the finals. Don't know what that was all about, but ideally it's to keep the fairness of it, and you're not just raiding the bottom dwellers for their 1 or 2 maybe guns that they have. You know what I mean? Like, you're not in the league, you're not going to make the finals, but you're not going to need this guy anymore. So again, you do want a fair commissioner too. He's going to veto trades if they don't look like they're favoring each side for whatever reason. Trades do have to benefit both parties. It's kind of half the point of doing it. Otherwise, go to the waivers. But yeah, that's entirely up to you if you wanted to do that. If you want to run trades all the way through to grand final, do whatever you want. That's the point. So
yeah, I won't take bribes, guys. League of Inches career. I won't take bribes.
Oh shit, we've already lost him.
I'll be too busy trying to work out what's the.
I've never seen this small amount of power go to a man's head so quickly.
I know. You just give him the keys and he just fucking jumps into a Ferrari.
Yeah.
But yeah, I suppose like at the end of the day, man, it is a long season. You do kind of have to play the long game with it as well. And especially when it does come to injuries, like if you want to just jump on some injured players, injured guns to that out for a while, there has been a player in our league that's done that quite a few times. And, you kind of just have to plod along until you get into finals, forget about winning, just make it into the 8. And then if you've got this wealth of guns that's just coming back, and you've set yourself up for a good run into the finals, it's always a way to play as well. So you're going for the big one at the end. You could chip away and win every round if you want, but it doesn't really mean much at the end of the season when you're not holding a trophy. So, draft day is probably the biggest fun that you'll have. And again, it all does become league dependent on the draft day kind of things, on how you're picking them, how you're timing them. And I was going to get on the draft order, like priority order, because you've made the point that you're drafting from 8th and you're not happy about it. Shane said that you can fix your team with the waivers to get into a good position. So the first 2-3 rounds, quite good, but go on.
Just quickly, we like to peel the curtain back here and let everyone in. The reason that makes me so annoyed about it more than anything is that we had to do beforehand 4 of the sort of fake spins just to make sure it was completely randomized. It was all fair. I was in the top 5 for literally every single round. I think I was in the top 3 for 2 or 3 of them. And then the last one just hit and I was fucking down to 8th. I was like, you are kidding me. Well, anyway, move on, please. That's what gets me the most.
Yeah, like I'm drafting from 11th in my other league, and it's nothing out of the ordinary. I always draft from the bottom, like every year, barring my first year where I auto drafted from first. It's been 9th, 11th, or 12th for about 6 years in a row. So it doesn't mean much, and you can kind of like, I've just catered my game to late drafting with close double picks, but missing out on all the big guys. Nothing wrong with it. 8's not too bad, really. Honestly, I do put shit on you for it. You can't really have a bad pick. Like if you're not first, second, or third, realistically, like you can kind of just get whatever's there. Like Cleary and Hines are great. Ponga is going to be great. All these top dogs are going to be pretty good. But you can still get by with some solid players. And like later down the pack, you might not get the big guys first or second, but you do get that second pick sooner. So, you can get onto that pretty well, and it's going to leave those guys that they do get a good player, but they miss out on the next, potentially 20 odd players. So, but yeah, Shane made the point earlier. It's a long year. You can fix your team up with the waivers, and things always change. But it is, it's the most fun, and you just get so nervous. You're just pooping all the time. So, was there any questions you had not actually drafting before, besides the ones that we sort of already answered, you reckon?
Oh, off the top of my head, that's pretty much like, I guess the thing is and you kind of already have spoken about it with the cheapy side of things, and then like the more experienced sort of players. I think that's a really big point to get across to people, because I sort of think about it. There's a lot I'll put into the second rowers. I reckon we should talk about that for a bit, is the fact that in classics, there is so many mid to cheaper tier players you can go for, and everyone's looking for because it frees up cash for the classic side of things. And I feel like in a way, players like Kaloa Matangi, we spoke about the Cameron Murrays, the Jai Arrows and stuff. We've also got the Hamole Olakwatu, and the like. That those sorts of quality players who we know can produce pretty good, consistent points, but they're not going to maybe generate the early cash for us on a classic point of view. I'm looking at that going, maybe those mid-tier options aren't as popular anymore, and it's back to those sorts of players you want to be getting in first. But then also think about someone like Sean Lane, who didn't really play last year. If he does get to play majority of the year, which we're all anticipating he does do, he will skyrocket back up to around those sorts of points that those guys are getting. So it's a real balancing act that I think a lot of people need to get their head around a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The draft order is obviously going to whittle a lot of that stuff down, because if you're drafting off the actual number order themselves, you're going to see all those guys at the top of the pack. And I suppose when you've spent hours building your team in Classic and you scroll right past all of them, it can kind of be easy to overlook them when it comes to this, but they are right at the top. They're right in front of your face. You're not going to scroll past Nakora, Olakawatu, or any of them to go all the way down and grab,
Wong.
Well, Sean Lane's a probably bad example, but Wong's a good one, because his position isn't, it's not nailed. We don't know that yet. Where these other guys, they are definitely nailed, and they're definitely guns in those positions too. So that's kind of the point there, really.
So on Lane, you could be like, all right, cool, there's this guy, he was a gun. Firma's another one. Firma had a great year the previous year. He's lower in the ranks. You could be like, I might wait for those guys. I can pick them up later. But like, everybody knows about them. So everybody's been hearing about them all preseason on the League of Inches podcast with Jesse and Joel. And they better have been. Tune in or else. So like, they've been hearing about them. So like, it's not like this like secret that only you know about. So like, don't bank on them staying that low. Like, I think that they can go a bit higher. So like, I think one of the points I had written down to talk about was like players that get overhyped in Classic. So there's not even just like your like your cashies. Like, cashies get overhyped and talked about because they're cashies. Everyone wants to make cash in Classic, but you got these other players, and it's like, oh, he's training the house down, or like just like somebody on name value. So there's like always like those players that people love, like they've got a big name, and then you got other guys that just kind of fly under the radar, but they have great averages. So like, name value probably means that somebody's going to get drafted earlier, and somebody might pay a bit like extra for them. They might have to go a bit earlier in the draft to get them, where there can be value in finding a player that, like, he's a good player and he does his stuff and he's not always in the headlines. He's not always being talked about. So there's definitely value there for some of those guys, I reckon.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think so too. And even just on those players you mentioned with Fermor, Lane, and those guys, both Fermor's ranked 198 in the draft order. Lane's 222. So it just depends. It just depends on the players that are doing it, because they're very late picks in those ones. And again, like, Sean Lane's a pretty good one, because he's going to get the spot if he gets nailed, and they're the ones that you can afford to leave a little later if you do get lucky enough for it. But again, man, when someone in Classic's got 40% ownership, they're going to go, oh shit, I got to get this guy in. He's heavily owned. So don't let that skew you too hard.
I suppose I don't think people are trying to go out of their way to get Strange at the moment, and his ownership in Classic is ridiculous. So that's a prime example there.
Yeah, he's a good one too. So like, you can see
he's one of those guys that I don't want to own. Like, I have him, but it's like, I feel really like bad about it.
Yeah, you don't really have much of a choice. Like, you kind of need to afford anyone else.
Yeah, I feel a bit gross.
Yeah. And then, it just sort of touch on some of the quality depth of those positions. So again, 2RF is one of those ones where, you can probably make do with a few. If you've got a gun, you can make do with a few of the other ones, because you do have multiples in that one position. But when you're playing with like 1/2, 158, one hooker, those are the kind of ones where you do want someone that's solid enough to do you a bit more of a job. Like, not everyone's going to have your Dylan Browns and Munsters. Like, once those two are gone, they're gone, and then you got to deal with Cody Walker. Shit, just fried me, man. Okay, backstory why I don't like him. I drafted him quite early. I think I drafted him in the 3rd round once, coming off a good season, and he was absolute rubbish for so long. I thought, you know what? I just fucking wrecked myself. I put myself in this position thinking this is going to be my guy for ages, and nah, it wasn't even remotely close. And yeah, once they drop off, they're gone pretty quick. And if that's the thing, like if you've lost them, don't rush in to get whoever's left, because they're all going to be pretty well average after that. They're all the same. So yeah, kind of prioritize your picks. You know what I mean? Like, work your strategy out. And again, it does depend on your draft order at the same time. And if you can kind of predict who's going in what position, to say, okay, I'm not going to get these guys. Like, it's realistically not going to happen. Where I'm most likely to get is this group of players. Which out of these players has the most value long term, or in that position that I can afford to probably wait 1 or 2 more rounds to get someone else? So again, entirely league dependent. But yeah, you go through them, man, and some of them drop off a fucking cliff. It's insane. It's good to watch the draft.
So like some of those you were saying, like, don't rush into like picking that player in that position if the good ones go. But by all means, if you get one of the really good players in a dud position, just like, hey guys, like, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's no fucking 5/8s left. You might want to get on that. Like, you want to like cause a bit of panic. So like what has happened in the past, I think like Cook has always been one where it's like Grant's gone, Cook's gone. In the past it was Cam Smith. There's like 3 or 4 elite hookers, and then everybody's like looking around and they're like, oh, like half the hookers are gone. I need to get a hooker. And you'll just have like a run on hookers. So like if you've missed out and like there's not to be a rush, like don't panic. Like you're probably going to get a dud. You might as well get a dud in like the 10th round instead of like the 6th round. So
yeah, that's pretty much the point there. Yeah. There's one like for
if people, if people are rushing, like if there's a run on a position and people are reaching, then that's going to open up like value in other positions. So that means that people that are in positions that are more valuable, they're going to be, sliding down to you. So like a prime one is you've got on the draft rankings, it actually shows average draft position. So that's kind of based off all the drafts that have been gone so far. So you can kind of get an idea of like, all right, how's this different to the Supercoach draft ranks? Because it's going to change and it's going to move around. So you're looking at like, I think one of the biggest moves I've seen here is like Clint Gufferson, who we spoke about earlier, but he's ranked 8, but his average draft position so far is 14th. So he's fallen. Whereas you go down to like a Dylan Brown, he's in 15th. He's the first good 5/8. He's up to 12. So, people are going earlier to get him, get a good 5/8. So
Harry Grant's another one.
Yeah, Harry Grant's a big mover, 17th in the ranks, and he's getting drafted at 8th based on the average. So that's a good one to like look at going forward, because those averages are only going to get more accurate the more drafts go on.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And you can kind of work around that too. And if you're like, if someone's got that rush going on and then just like hooker's gone, hooker's a good one. You go, shit, there's no hookers left. And then they start drafting hookers that have like a 40 average, but then they're leaving quality with, 50 plus 60 in other positions. That's where you're going to get some really good late draft value picks. And, you can look back on your team and go, shit, I got this weapon in the 6th round. Well, normally he would have gone in the 3rd or 4th round, but people just start freaking out. And if you can get onto those like thin early positions early enough without reaching too far ahead, being like, oh, there's none left, but I'm going to take that position first. It's like, would you want to miss out on something bigger than that if you could have gotten that instead? So yeah, I suppose it's when your picks up, you do. You gotta make that decision. If you think that you can run with this better position and pick up someone who'll make up the slack in another one, try your luck, But
so Jesse, hypothetical for you, Jesse. If you were in like 7th or 8th, would you consider going down and grabbing like like Dylan Brown at 5'8" or someone like that, just kind of getting ahead of the curve, or would you like just go with the flow and grab a fullback, knowing that like some of the better fullbacks have already gone?
It just depends on who's already gone and who was my best option. You know what I mean? Like if I was looking down there and then if I was in 8th pick, let me just go average by draft order position and see who's actually. So Harry Grant's obviously been picked 8th, but if the option came to me, all the other ones kind of been taken there, and it was like Dylan Brown or Reece Walsh. More than likely, I'm probably going to take Dylan Brown personally, because you've got 2, 3 max viable 5'8" for that starting run. Otherwise, they're all kind of the same. You know, at the end of the day, there is still a few more fullbacks than that. So, you know, you kind of just got to work around it. But again, it just depends on that option for you. If that person was like, Tommy Turbo was falling to me at 8th, I'm definitely taking him. But then here's his own risks too. You draft someone like Tommy Turbo in the first round, he gets injured. There's your first pick gone. You know what I mean? So you got to take that good with the bad. Sure as shit not taking Sean Johnson. Draft pick number 9th. And you know what? His average draft pick position is 9th.
Wow.
That's ambitious. That is.
He's like a likable player. Like people like wanted him to win the Dally M last year. He's got a good story.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I think people aren't like scoping out the stats, because if you look back to previous years, you'll see he definitely wasn't scoring 78. So
no,
yeah,
not at all.
I got a question around duels. Where are duels at with draft, and how important is getting dual players? Because I feel like it's more important than ever to get some dual players to really be able to change some things around in your squad.
I'll take this one. Like it depends on your bench size. Like if you've got a huge bench, which I don't recommend, I recommend going like a 5-person maybe. Like if you've got a bigger bench than that, then it won't matter as much. You're gonna have more coverage on your bench. But it is good to have flexibility. Like I've seen in the past, in leagues over the years, where people just go nuts. They go crazy on duels. They want duels. And I've had times where I've had duels, and it's like you end up with one really good duel and like a couple of it, and it's like you can't really like move your starters around. It's you end up like, no matter what, you end up putting someone in from your bench, and it's not ideal. Like, so yeah, it can be good depending on the duel. But yeah, it can also be like not that big a deal. I wouldn't sell the farm to get a duel. Like Atino might probably go a couple spots earlier based on the fact that he's a duel. But I think the lower you get down the ranks as well, probably the less it matters. So
yeah, I don't feel like there's as many really super relevant dual position players this year anyway. They have kind of dropped off a little bit, you know, besides Tino. There's couple
an update coming.
Fullback center wings. I know they've got that update coming through too, but I just don't see anyone really that's going to make massive mountains move for getting a dual position on there. You know, there's going to be a fair few center wing fullback duels. So, you know, that could be pretty good too if you're going to be plugging fullbacks in your center spot. But, you know, it doesn't really work the other way. There's not too many fullbacks that are actual fullbacks playing there. So it just depends, man. Like, you're not going to be getting Garrick playing in your fullback position. So, yeah, it's kind of, you do want those guys to be in those lesser positions if they are there. And there's just not many this year, which it might make them more valuable to some people. I know that I've drafted plenty of people that they'll just stack their whole side full of duels because they're dual. You know what I mean? Like they'll intentionally pick the dual position player over someone that's probably better than them for that flexibility, thinking it gives that player value for whatever reason. But yeah, it can have its upside, but I wouldn't. Yeah, like Shane said,
I promised the viewers I wanted to pick your brains tonight, and this might help a little bit of the guys in your fellow draftees, the League of Inches draft, and obviously your Gilly gang. Let's take away the top 3 at the moment. So we're taking away Hines, Cleary, and Ponga. Who have you both got as number 4 in the draft at the moment, player-wise?
To be honest with you, I haven't really done this. I haven't really scoped out the top 12 or 10, what way people are going to get picked. So go on. I want to hear your thoughts, Shane.
Yeah, I mean, like I spoke before about Drinkwater and how I feel about the finals, but like you could take Drinky and he's going to kill it for you all season. So he's going to get you deep into the finals. So probably Drinky. Tom Trbojevic, depends how you feel about him, like about his injury concerns. For me, he hasn't played enough games. Great if you can get him to play those 12 to 15 games he might play a year towards the back half. But he's kind of shown that he more than likely injures himself earlier on, and then he's done by the kind of end of the season. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, probably Drinky. And if you wanted like someone more reliable, you could go down to Fafita. He's ranked 6th.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah,
even though he's injured,
he's more of a sure bet. Like, so they kind of like you look at your average, and it's more like what kind of spread am I getting from that average? So obviously, like if you go for your halves and your fullbacks, you're getting a bigger spread week to week on what they score on their average. So whereas Fafita's going to get closer to his average every week, it's going to be a bit more consistent. So that could be a good shout, kind of into like your first pick, get that reliability, and then maybe you could have a shout at a few more wild higher upside players the further into the out rounds you go.
Yeah, I would probably look towards that ceiling for those players. You know what I mean? Like you do want the good base, but you just want someone that's going to explode. These guys can win you rounds. So that's kind of where I'd be looking at it. And again, you know what, man? Like even still, just thinking about where I think these players would go, it does depend on who you're drafting with. Ultimately, like if I know someone that's picking from 4th position and they love this particular player, I'm going to go, all right, I have a good idea that this guy's probably going to take him, even if it's not what's actually probably the best option at the time. I know plenty of people that would probably go Harry Grant 4th pick. You know what I mean? Just to have the best hooker nice and early, done, it's dusted, and it's still a good pick. You know what I mean? So there's things like that. I would probably personally go if it was 4th. If I was in the 4th position, yeah, I would probably go Drinkwater myself. But I know that kind of recency bias might not work with some others because they would want maybe another year's worth. But man, if you just saw what he'd done last season, he was fucking nuts, just nuts. And that's the kind of play that you're going to want to get there instead of someone who's going to pop you 70s each week, more often than not. So, yeah. What do you reckon? Who would you, if you were drafting from 8th position, who would you be picking?
Purely hypothetical.
Tell me your thoughts. Who am I expecting to see there?
Who do you want to see?
Don't do that. Yeah, it's probably not a good idea. But who would you?
What,
if you could?
Me or Shane?
You.
Well, if I was going from 8th, so if I'm going from my actual position, look, just to give everything away, because what's the point of keeping? I can't keep anything secret. I bloody run a league page. I'll create content every day, and I have to give away everything that I think. So when it comes to Supercoach, everyone knows what's coming when they verse I forget my team name if I got that much
inch
going
at a time.
on. Inch at a time. There we go. To be honest, I do like the Dylan Brown play and I like the Harry Grant play because I like the fact that both positions are weaker this year, and I would like to jump on either of those two players if they are available. I anticipate the gun fullbacks to be gone. Interestingly, I thought with that number 4 pick, when you both spoke about, say, Turbo as well, you didn't mention Latrell either, but I feel like he may have gone down a little bit now because of the injuries at South. I think that might impact his Supercoach game a little bit. But interesting where he goes as well, because again, you talk about those rocks and diamonds players. I feel like you just don't know what you're going to get with Latrell. So that'll be interesting to see which comps and where Latrell is placed as well, because I think me and Jesse have spoken as well. Like Gutho, in a way, like I know we look at last year and it could have been one of those abnormal years for Gutho, but God, he was pulling some points. Like there was just like what you went through it, Jesse. Me and Jesse just the other night, and like we didn't anticipate the amount of hundreds we were gonna read, and it just kept coming. That was just like 100. I was like, holy shit! And Gutho's maybe a bigger player than we're anticipating. So it is interesting, and a lot goes down to, like, I think, and no disrespect to the boys at League of Inches, they know already in the draft that a lot of those first players, they don't have a clue what's going on, guys. Let's be honest. So it could make for some interesting things to see who's actually around. I do anticipate the big three will go in the three positions, but after that, the next rounds to come, I'm anticipating some big players to still be around when we're anticipating they'll be gone. So it's definitely interesting. But from 8, I'm looking at probably Dill Brown or Harry Grant, but knowing you boys, actually, I think Shane's after me in the League of Inches one, so that's okay.
Yeah, I'm down to
Jesse
11.
will probably snake me.
Yeah, I like what you're on about.
Me,
there. You know,
I'm not going either of those from 3rd.
I liked what you're on about with
Sorry,
like
mate.
8th there. You know, Hooker and 5'8", like that's a bit of a different point there. So if you're down in 8th, like the elites, you know, the elite halfbacks, the elite fullbacks, they've been taken. So that could be a point of difference for you. I think like Harry Grant, I would, if I was in a captain's league, I'd absolutely not pick him first. Like he just doesn't have the upside. But on Gutho, like I can't remember what you guys said about Gutho on the pod, but like I've kind of found in my like research that a lot of his big scores were like during that period when Brown was out. So I think a big part of his uptick was the fact that he was doing a lot more for then. And the whole reason I didn't mention Latrell, great player. I can't stand to own him in draft or classic because I'm watching the games and he's great for like 10 minutes of a game. But the other 70 minutes, I'm screaming at my TV, Latrell, would you fucking do something, mate? Like, take a kick return. I swear to God. He's really like that all or nothing like player that like he's like the highlight reel. But then like you're looking at him like not getting involved, and it's just fucking so painful as an owner to sit there watching him do nothing when he's on like 15 points after like 50 minutes. Sometimes he he comes through at the end. He's obviously like averaged 77 last year, so he's no pleb. But frustrating watch as an owner.
Yeah, there's a few of them too, and like, you know, it's almost worth not having them for that reason. But on the same token, it's just like, imagine facing someone that had him, and then they're watching your team going, "Oh, this guy's fucking doing dog shit. This guy, I'm gonna walk through this one." You get that last 20 minutes where he just turns the Jets on, and then you crush their spirit. You crush them right into the dirt, and then you can kind of put it on them. So, like, you know, it is fun to sometimes have that, but I wouldn't bank on it. No, volatility is not a fun thing. So, especially when you have to own them and you don't have much of a choice to just trade them out if they piss you off.
Are you thinking back to a time I crushed you into the dirt, Jesse, on a Sunday afternoon?
On a Sunday afternoon, I hate Sunday afternoon games, man. They're just the bane of my existence, bro. Honestly, the amount of times I've lost on the last game, the last round, just by like a couple points too, it's just too much of a going trend. That's a draft strategy. Try and avoid Sunday games. It's just not worth the heartache. You'd rather your weekend early so you can enjoy your weekend.
Draft a team of Broncos. Get it all out of the way early.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's it. It's a Friday night game.
And then you can you don't have to worry about, oh, sorry, honey, I got to watch all these games because my players are all spread out across like 6 or 7 different games.
Actually, well, that's another point that you just bring up, drafting multiples of the same team. Buy rounds. If you're playing like you're going to cop a buy round every week, you come across it in Classic where you get your bench depth sorted and, you can move players 1 or 2 here and there. You kind of don't have that luxury all the time. And if you have to drop players to field a team, there's a good chance that you might not be able to get those players again. So you really do have to think about how many players from the same team you are picking up. I'm not going to say that having double up isn't a bad thing. Like normally, double ups are pretty much where I would stop. I probably would never have 3 of the same team. So 3 of the same players in that team. But yeah, it's again, like it's common sense stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you want just 3 Tigers players.
Yeah, 3 Tigers. You just get Papali, Bateman.
Dragons.
I don't know which other third one you'd use. Coruscant, maybe. Yeah, so it's pretty common stuff. You just don't don't stack your team with the same team. Otherwise, you're going to be completely screwed come buy rounds because, it's a bit heartbreaking dropping players.
There's another strategy you could take. You could almost like have one round as just a write-off. You could be like, you know, fuck it. All my players are on buy during this round. And then I don't have to worry about, you know, few ins and outs here. So
take a hit.
That's a fucking terrible strategy.
Well, yeah, I found like personally, like last year was the first, year we had like one team on buy every round. And there was a lot of talk like pre-draft, like shit, like, how am I gonna plan for this? And like to me, it was a bit of like a nothing burger. Like it wasn't as big a deal as people were hyping it up to be. I think like you're more worried about like, okay, are my guns gonna be on buy during the finals? That's a consideration. That's not an everything as we discussed, but that's more of a consideration than like the week to week. And then you've got the 3 main buy rounds. So like I'm not sure what the setup in our league is. The League of Inches one, but
I think we said no to it. I'm pretty sure.
No. Okay.
I think we're not playing the major buy. I think there was a voted one, and I was actually keen to because I actually wouldn't have mind the strategy involved with it, but I think it ended up no got voted the winner.
Yeah, because like that's going to make him even less important. But like there's other drafts. You can set up your draft so instead of scoring for 13 players, you're scoring for 7 players or 6 players. So as they kind of do in like Classic now. So that is that's a strategy to it. And another strategy as well you could run if you're not playing those buy rounds is, you could have a look at those rounds. So there's teams that have 2 of their buys during the major buy rounds. Off the top of my head, Storm, maybe Roosters or Broncos.
Yeah.
But like if you're picking players from those teams and they're on buy during the major buy rounds and you're not playing them, then hey, you're getting more value out of them.
Yeah, you've just got away with 2 extra games. So, but again, with those teams you did mention, they more than likely have those late buys where you kind of do want them if you're pushing for that final spot. So, yeah, a lot to think about, really, isn't there?
Yeah, I got another question for you.
Yeah, shoot.
I don't want to go too much into the position side of things. We've sort of touched on a number of positions, but one we haven't touched on yet are the center wings. I just want to know how important you feel like you both feel like they are, because we have obviously seen, I feel like in the last probably 2 years in Supercoach, I know a lot last year, there was people even using them as captaincies and stuff with just the huge amount of points that some of them can score. We're talking about the Osakos, the Marjus, the Alex Johnsons when he's on a run, when he can get those hat tricks in a round and things like that. What's the importance you place on some wingers? I know we talk about the main, the key positions like your spine, obviously, and then your feeds and stuff. But I sort of look at it and I think, obviously, we're not playing a captain's league, and those it's not as probably important, but it's still like for Osako, etc. Like last year, you can get almost 100 points just there with one of your backline players. I feel like they must be rating up there when it comes to things.
Yeah, it can do. There's obviously a lot more of them than any other position really that you have to worry about. Again, you do field more than the other teams. So obviously the guns are guns for a reason. If you're going to get one, you just got to pick that player early enough that you can kind of justify their draft position. I wouldn't reach personally for a center wing. If I felt there was a bit more talent in the spine that I had to sort out first. Like again, man, like if I've not got a good hooker or a fullback or something 5'8" wise, I'm probably not getting a center wing. I'm probably in 2 minds. I'm more than happy to play center wing roulette sometimes as well, depending on the matchup. Because they're the ones where you're going to get those big games for, and you can kind of tell when it's going to happen. Roughly, like chances are, unless you've got a gun, you're probably not going to run with the same setup the whole year. You're going to be chopping and changing here and there, where things get a little bit better for them. If you've got a winger and their run looks like Storm, Panthers, Broncos, Roosters, like you're probably not going to want to play that guy all the time. Unless, they've just got the base for it and they're killing it, like Karaz or, any of these, like Marju even. Like he's obviously the best one out there. Kind of fixture proof because he's just a monster. Or if you've got Titans against the Tigers, grab Khan Pereira, if I can chuck him in, he'll probably score a hat trick. So it's a pretty volatile position, which is why, like, if you can get a gun, in a good enough position, I would. But again, I don't think I'm going to be going too hot out of the gates for the center wingers.
Thanks for giving away that vital information before our drafts together, Jesse. I'm going to take notes on that. Thanks.
Okay,
that's good. No, I've got like similar kind of thoughts around it. Like, you know, like Jesse was talking about Marzu. Like a gun is a gun, right? Like they've got that average. You know, they're gonna kill it for you, but it's like how many guns do you get in center wing? So it might depend on, like we're talking about squad size. Like I know in the League of Inches we're playing 4 center wings, whereas in me and Jesse's Gidley Gang League we've got 3 center wings. So like, you know, you don't have to be a mathematician to know that, you know, suddenly center wings are a bit less valuable if you only have to get 3 starters compared to 4. So so in that case, if you really value center wings, you might go after 2 guns if you need a field 4. So you might be, you know, play that mix. Whereas like in a three center wing field squad, you might just go for 1. So it's dependent there. So I think there's a bit of variation as well in the center wings. Like something you'll kind of find is there'll often be guys that come out of nowhere. So previous seasons they didn't feature. So if you have a look, the top 2 center wings, Marzu and Azarko, where do you think they would have featured prior, like for the 2023 draft? They would not have been anywhere near it. Like Azarko was like a Broncos cast off, you know? Nobody was talking about Azarko. Marzu, you know, there was talk that he was a great attacking player, but you know, Titans have gotten rid of him. So he would have gone quite low in last year's draft. So you know, you've got your guys there, you got your Holmes, your Garricks. They're gonna like they're big names. They're always gonna go Manu. So and that's what I was talking about as well. Like you get these big name players, like, you know, like, oh, these are great players, like a Joey Manu, like, and people will people will overdraft them. Yeah. So there is value. There is value to be found, and there's gonna, like, center wing, I think, is the position where you're gonna find more players kind of come from a lower average and jump up to a higher average. So it's far more likely you're going to get a guy that you draft in the 7th round turns into like a first or second round pick the following year than you are for like a halfback or a 5'8", you know? You're just not going to see that growth. So
yeah, it's pretty much nails that. Yeah, I suppose I don't know if I've got really too much more to say about the positional side of things, to be honest with you. You know where the quality is, and you can see where the quantity of the rest of the players are, so you can kind of afford to leave them a little bit. But again, like, you can't go past the best players in each position if you can afford to get them where you can. But just got to be a bit smart about it. Have a think about it. Back your gut. Like it's all about it, really, what it is. Especially early picks. Like, you just got to trust that that's a good decision for yourself, and it does set your strategy off from that point. And then obviously you won't be able to plan other people's picks, so you will have to adjust pretty well on the fly. If you've got 1 minute timers, the guy before you takes the person you wanted, you're going to be fucking stressing out pretty quickly if you don't have a contingency for it. So just have fun with it, really. Be wild. Pick shit.
Yeah,
just don't pick fucking center wings too early.
Well, what about like, you know, when I sniped Karaz in like the 4th round and you're sitting there like crying because I stole your boy?
Yeah, I've had him too many times to not miss out. I think Snez did that with Toto as well. They kind of know, you know, they're like, oh, okay, he's due. He's coming up for that pick. Fuck, Jesse's always on that guy.
Yeah.
Gone. Yeah, sucks.
I think that like plan out as much as you can. Like kind of have an idea. Like I think we've been talking about our draft ranks, right? Like, so our pick order, I should say. So, you know, I'm 11th, and I can kind of like, I can't really pick my first pick out too well. It's like whoever falls to me. But like ideally, you still have like time to research. So some leagues I've been in, they decide their draft order like the morning of draft, you know? You know, like
we've done that too.
Yeah, you rock up to your draft party if you're doing it in person, and next thing you're picking rubber duckies with numbers on the bottom of them out of like a toy pond, and and you're like, oh shit, all right, cool, I'm drafting here. So you don't have any time to kind of think about it. So if you know where you're drafting from, you can kind of have a little bit of a strategy. All right, I want to get this position first pick, second pick, I'm going to get this one. Have a rough strategy like that. But, inevitably, it's probably going to fall apart. If you've got like a position in mind, then at least you can like move on to another player, but you don't want to like chase people too much. And yeah, you also want to stay open and flexible. So, if a diamond in the rough falls to you and like people are just ignoring him, then hey, you can pivot and grab yourself some gold. So, but there's a lot happening. It's easy to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, it sounds overwhelming. You'll be all right, even from 8th. Yeah, but if someone just leaves Day for Feeder for 2 rounds, or they leave him go past the whole wave because they think, oh, he's injured for 5 weeks, I don't want that. It's like there's another 20 rounds to go. If you can get him in the second, mate, you're cheering. You know what I mean? So there's the little things like that. Just got to catch them out where they fall to you. Sometimes they just fall in your lap, and you just think, I just have to take this guy. It was not part of my plans. I didn't want to, but too good a quality of player. And then you kind of adjust around that as well. So everything's on the fly.
Yeah.
You feeling pretty good about it now? You're feeling ready to draft?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I could, if we could just get everyone together, let's go tonight. It's all fresh in my mind. I'll quickly write down my top 10 of each position, and then off we go. That's how I think I'm going to do it. I'm just going to get a rough plan together. And I'm a very old school. I'm a pen and paper type guy, and I will literally be going and crossing off as people go, and go that way. So, and then as you said, towards the end, it's sort of pick up whoever you want. So, or whoever's left, whoever's available. So,
I'm a notes app man.
Yeah, same. I love my notes apps. Just my short list. Yeah.
I think it's good to have like a list of your targets like for certain positions, or like, who you want to get around a certain range in a round. Like sometimes if you're just following what's happening on the app, like on your phone or on the computer, it's easy to like lose track of like players, like, because they'll go, like people will pick them. Like if you're doing it in person, like we're doing it in person for our other league, and we've got like a draft board. So, so you're walking up, there's like that, all right, I'm picking this, and it's like the big reveal kind of thing. So everybody is super aware of, who's being picked for other sides. You can see that like, oh shit, all the hookers are gone and I don't have one. So yeah, it's a bit different. Like if you're just drafting online on the app, there'll be like a function where you can like select the other teams and check out who they've got. So you can kind of, stay on the ball. Remember the like certain players that are gone. So yeah, it's good to have a little plan written down, a few names that aren't like on the website, because stuff will move, names will disappear, and you'll just be like, oh, hold on, what the fuck was I doing?
Yeah, I was looking at someone right before they're ready to pick. They're gone. Yeah.
I think that's a good point you make there, because from my point of view, and probably a lot of people out there listening resonate with this being their first draft. I did a mock draft the other week, and honestly, guys, like you got to do a couple just to get your head around it. But the bots on it just goes like it was a blur. It was so confronting. The first one, I was like, holy shit. But at the same time, I was looking at it, and I didn't. This is why I'm going to be doing my own notes for it and putting down like maybe a top 10 or 15 for each position. But I didn't like some of the players there, like in the top, I don't know, 20. There was a few that I just personally wouldn't have rated in the top like 60, 70 picks or something for this year, because of things that have changed this year, players getting increased minutes and stuff who I feel like a better value, all that sort of thing. So for me, it feels like I'm better to do it with my knowledge of the game manually and do it sort of a way that I feel good with. Because if I just follow the Supercoach board and just go off the stats that they're going from like last year and that, there's so many players I feel like for this year that last year's stats aren't really relevant for them. So it's like, oh, let that go, because that board moving that quickly, especially when you do it with the bots in the mock draft, it's like all of a sudden you look at one player, they were down the bottom, they're at the top, you're like, holy shit, what the fuck's happened here? But yeah, it is confronting. But I do recommend, guys, if you are new to it, just to do a few, just to get your head around some stuff and just get used to that real quick play because, as you said, depending on the time limit, because I think there's even time limits of like 30 seconds and stuff. Like there's some crazy stuff out there. Like you don't even have thinking time for those. But
don't do that. Don't do 30 seconds.
No. Yeah, it'll be too quick for you, honestly. By the time you've sort of gone through, and you can, if you're using the app too, you can filter. You can go by position. You can go da 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 da. At least try and see. You can see the number of who's in that position. Try and work out where you've got a bit of time to wait for some other ones. And that can take 30 seconds on its own.
30 seconds,
and then it's gonna auto draft.
Yeah, 30 seconds doesn't even give you enough time to fix the app if it freezes, or the website freezes.
Oh.
So.
Yeah, that's another thing.
I've heard about that. I've heard.
I think last year. About that. Yeah. But last year it was like the weekend before, and everybody decided to do their draft on like a Saturday. So like I think the old Supercoach headquarters servers were having a bit of a meltdown. Tommy Sangster was in the back room trying to like plug in cables, and yeah, like I did a mock draft, and it was like I had it up on my computer and on my phone, and it just loaded in straight away, and it was all pretty smooth. So, but if you've got like longer picks, if there's an issue, you can just refresh, get in, get out, and yeah, you'll be able to cope with that.
Yeah, it might even be worth just setting your draft pick timer to a few minutes. It's not going to take you a few minutes to make that pick, hopefully. Anyway, at least it just gives you a bit more of a safety net to fall on if it does crash on you and you ends up auto drafting whoever's the next best player in that line. So
there's a bit of up, especially a bit of strategy in it too, Jesse. Like I know that you've been a fan of having kind of like that turn pick, like in like an 11th or 12th. Yeah. So like if you're sitting in 12th and like you've had heaps of time to think about your picks, you can just like bang them out, bang bang, like back to back, because you don't have to worry about anyone getting taken. So like if somebody's like you got a couple people near you that aren't on the ball, like say like the 10th person, they're like, all right, fuck, who do I pick? 11th picks theirs, boom. Jesse comes in at turn 12, bang bang, and then 11th knows what they're doing. Like number 10, number 9, they're like, oh shit, it's back to us already. Like we thought we'd have like a couple minutes to like think about our next move. So yeah.
Yeah.
Jesse's going to the toilet for the 12th time.
Yeah, well, I can afford to after I've done my doubles. I'll be back in 20 minutes time for my next, emergency poo that I have to do. So yeah, that's a good point actually. Yeah, they'll come and get you. Honestly, it's very unexpected. Leading up to the draft start, like when you're watching that timer countdown and you're sitting there like 5 minutes out, your guts are churning.
It's better in person. It's better in person.
Yeah, you don't get the nerves in person.
You're distracted by the boys. So
yeah, it's pretty funny that. And I suppose there was one other thing that I wanted to make a point of as well. I was talking to Shane about it earlier today. The most important thing about draft, the most important above all, is your team name. Yep, it's got to be funny. That's it. Honestly, you have to have a good team name. You can pick anyone from you want. You can pick anyone from last position. They can be fine. But if your team name is hilarious, fuck it, you've already won. That's it. You're the people's champ.
The moral victory.
That's it.
But I feel like that sort of sums draft up as well in a way. It is. There's a serious aspect to it, but there's also plenty of banter. Like, make sure you've got a good group with you. It is banter the whole year. It adds another aspect to things because obviously Supercoach and stuff, there's sometimes people in your comps you don't really know or know too well, but the draft, I feel like it's really that community style. It's just a group of mates having fun. And as you said, probably better in person when you get to do some of those challenges and stuff to get your lineup and where everyone's going to be picking from, and just have that mateship thing is awesome. So just make sure the chats and stuff are going off. Like, I know in the past I've been in chats with different avenues for stuff, and it's just not there and doesn't mean as fun. Where if you get a good chat, just make sure the draft stuff is fun. I think that's what it all comes down to. You're very rarely going to get your strong side.
Yeah, you got to get on the memes. Me and Jesse have had a few meme battles over the years.
Well, I have to reignite my meme fuel. Actually, I've been pretty quiet the last couple of years.
I'm like a real like sucker for doing a meme that like basically Jesse's the only one that's going to understand.
Yeah,
so like
pretty obscure memes, but
some dank meme in the drop that in the on the page or in the chat, and like people are just like, "What the hell is this?" And like as soon as Jesse like reacts,
like Backpage. This is back page of Reddit shit that like you've just never seen before. It's like, yeah, that's the meaning you kind of want for this sort of page. So
yeah.
So have you boys done just all your drafts in person so far? Or have you done an internet online one as well?
We drafted in. Oh, there's been a couple. COVID, we drafted through the app, but we just had the cameras up, so we're all. It was like this, except we we're just popping through. It was a Zoom chat.
Got a question.
Few boys were dying. They were like full on COVID, and you're like, Austin, it's your pick. Are you still alive?
Yeah. Last
so on
year,
that,
yeah.
On that, so let's just have a fun question. Pretty much, I feel like we're starting to wrap things up a bit. With your draft setup for whoever out there's doing it, if it's a day or a night, what's your ideal draft setup then for an online one we'll talk about? Because obviously in person, you can't really talk about if it's all the big group, but you're sitting there. What's the choice of drink? Is there food on the side as well? Or are you just getting too distracted by that? You're solely locked on the computer screen. Away you go.
I'm locked on the toilet. So that's me, man. I'm sitting on the toilet the whole draft. Just don't have time to move. No, I suppose whatever it is, couple beers, you want to get into it. You don't want to get too inebriated, I would say. You want to keep a clear head as much as you can because things come through pretty freaking quick. And if you're tanking, you're going to look at your team the next day and think, what the fuck was I thinking? Picking all these guys up.
If you get shit faced, like you got an inbuilt excuse for the entire year. Like,
yeah,
like I'm
then
not.
You can't use it as an excuse. That's your fault.
You could try. Yeah, it's probably not going to go down well. I think like we were talking before, like online drafts, they can be a bit more like nervous. You're like, oh my god, you're like waiting for the screen to go. So if you have a couple like drinks to like cool the nerves, it's definitely the idea. Like shit, I reckon like throwing it out there, you could even like set up a little like Zoom chat or whatever it is for our League of Inches one. So because there's obviously like a whole bunch of people in there that don't know each other. So that's a good way to that's a good way to get some of that banter going and chat going in the league, if you know who's who. So
yeah.
It's a cool way to do it, actually. I like that. I think we'll be on to that. So that's a little tip out there for everyone having some fun and keep the chats going. But anything else, boys? I'm lost here. I feel like I've absorbed everything and I'm ready to go. So I don't know if there's any more advice to give that you can't give because it gives just everything away. Like I could sit here and ask for your top 10 picks, but I know I probably won't be getting that out of you boys at the moment. So there's
depends. Depends where you're drafting from. Like it really does. Like you can't. It just depends who's taking who ahead. Like I know, like in like me and Jesse's other league, like I'm drafting from 5th, and I've got a player in mind, and I've had him in mind, locked in for like 2 weeks now, and nobody's changing my mind. And if anybody takes him on draft day, there'll be fireworks. But I'm
drafting from 11th in that league. Where Shane's drafting from 11th in this league. So we're in the same position in 2 different leagues. So we might even just talk about that amongst each other.
Who do you want me to leave you? Down at 11th.
Down in 11th. I'm not even going to get into that at all. I think I might just steer away from any of that draft player talk for the time being. I actually have no clue. 11th, at 11th, there is you don't get to choose. You will get what you are given. You get what you get. You don't get upset. So, sort of how that rolls. But from anywhere above, if you're top 5, you've got options. You've got plenty. Otherwise, I'm just going to see what happens where it falls to me. So, and then just roll with it. That's it. Happy.
That's it. There we go. Well, that's it, guys. I hope you've all enjoyed this Supercoach draft episode. You all requested it, so I hope you have sat back, enjoyed it, maybe with a few drinks to prepare for the preparation ahead for your draft. You always need to have a few drinks. Who knows? But look, I really appreciate Shane coming on, the complete setup, the great internet connection and everything. He has just been a 10 out of 10 performance tonight from Shane. Shane, thanks heaps for coming on, and I'm going to make a prediction now. I don't think this is the last time we see you here talking Supercoach.
Yeah, I mean, I I'm happy to talk Supercoach whenever. It's always been one of those things. Like I'm like I'll listen to all the podcasts, take in all the information, and I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. But then as soon as I start talking about it, I'm just like, all right, I'm all in. But yeah, my connection was flawless. Like Jesse was like sounded like fucking R2D2 there a few times.
don't get. So. I was gonna get to that. Don't get like Jesse. I just want to say, first of all, Shane also dressed to impress, and it has worked. I'm extremely impressed. So that's
extremely aroused.
Oh, the arousal levels are very high. If you wear that on draft night, my draft will be out the window. But Jesse, Thursday nights don't work well with you. I don't know what happens at your place on a Thursday night with internet, but your internet connection tonight it's been better.
I actually don't know what I noticed that too when I got up here, and I was like, I hope that's not going to be a problem, but I don't know what it is, to be honest with you. I apologize. We probably had it's like 12 hours of content that we've made, and Shane comes out episode 1 with a fucking microphone set up like that.
Well, like the funny thing is though, like, because in the league that me and Jesse have been in, we've been playing NRL fantasy for draft for like the last 7 years, and we've just convinced everybody to come across to Supercoach. So me and Jesse sat down and we did like a podcast, like just like, hey, this is the differences. This is, fantasy versus Supercoach, what to look out for. And I recorded it, and then I was using OBS and I didn't record my microphone. I had the wrong channel selected. Oh, no. So when I went to look at it, it was like it's recording me in the background, but it was so faint. So I was in I was in the editing suite trying to boost mine up, and I'm just like, this is a fucking write-off. So the mic sounds good when it's turned on. So
you sound very good. The thing is with Jesse as well, and this is what I hate. There's been a couple of videos. The very first one we did, his audio in that was shocking, but everyone loves him. Like the amount of comments I get on a weekly basis about Jesse makes me sick now. It's like they hate me and they just love Jesse, so no worries. But he could get away with murder on this page. We could come on and say, Jesse's on tonight. He's a bit busted. He just killed someone. And everyone will be like, oh, Jesse, how good.
There's a body hanging over in the corner. Don't mind him.
We forgive you. He's all good. Like, Jesse can't do any wrong on this page. And it's actually making me sick. So everyone in the comments right now, after you've listened to this draft episode, actually give it to Jesse for the internet connection tonight, because I think he deserves it. Fix it. Get off Dodo or whatever you're on. Actually, by the way, Dodo, we love you. If you want to sponsor the show, get on board.
I'm with Telstra. Telstra NBN. Telstra NBN, 250 bits a second. There's no excuses. I don't know why it's shit. But yeah, I do appreciate those comments too. Thank you, everyone. It is quite nice to see people are enjoying the shit I talk. So
you've set a high standard. Like Jesse's getting all these comments. So geez, I hope I get a couple compliments. I might have to send a link to my mum and go, hey mum, jump on, fucking put in a good word for
that's
me.
What Jesse did.
Yeah.
Jesse did that early on, just the quick share on the Facebook page, get your family quickly on it, and it just takes off from there. So hit that one up, Shane. But that's it, guys. Thank you very much for listening. We hope we have provided the goods with draft. Good luck on your draft day, or maybe you've got a couple of draft days like myself. I've locked myself into a few now, and I'm a bloody beginner. So anyway, can't wait for it. Footy season is back. As we said, the trial tonight. It was good to watch some of those players. Pappy got through. If you're a Supercoach player, obviously you are listening to this, go and put Pappy in your team. Pappy is back, the year of the Pap. Thank you. Enjoy.